This is John Cameron with Gray Area, where our mission is to unite house music fans from across the globe. And today I'm speaking with Miss Dre. Miss Dre, thank you so much for meeting with me today.
Hell yeah, thank you. It's such an honor to be on here.
Absolutely. And you've released a couple big tracks this year, Something Special and Club Cravings. How would you say those have been received so far?
Yeah, they've been received really well. They got a lot more engagement than I thought they were gonna get. And yeah, they were really fun to make. Club Cravings, I'd say, yeah, it got a lot of good engagement. I was just super inspired by like the wants and like intentions of people when they go into a club and like what they're needing out of like a club environment. And so that's kind of what set off my track Club Cravings.
I see. So that was the inspiration behind it. It was like the different reasons that somebody could be wanting to go in that setting.
Yep, totally, for sure.
Gotcha. And I find it interesting that aside from your own productions, you've racked up some accolades strictly for your vocals as well. Like the one that comes to mind is, you know, your Beatport #1, Follow Me by Niles Shepherd. Tell me how that track came together.
Oh, yeah, it was with my homies, Niles Shepherd, Jim and Cam, and they sent me the track. It was probably like 80% done. They did most of the production on that one, and they had actually the vocals already in mind, and they just hit me up and they were like, yo, we're kind of struggling with recording these. Would you just mind like throwing it down? And I was like, yeah, no problem. So I did it like in 5 minutes, and that was kind of that. So it was a good, fun, easy collab.
Is the creative process generally a lot different when you're just providing vocals for a song, or was that kind of a special case?
Yeah, I'd say it's quite different. That one was definitely like they had their vision in mind, you know, they gave me their vocals, what they wanted. They also said like, have fun with it. If you want to switch it up, do what you want to do. But I thought the vocals went well with it already. And so I kept it, and yeah.
Okay, cool. And I understand that your music background goes back pretty far. Tell me about how you first got into music, how you first, you know, started making music. Give me the whole play-by-play.
Sounds good. Yeah. I've always felt a passion for music since I was like probably 9, 10 years old. There's even like pictures of me at my grandma's house, like even when I was 5, singing karaoke to them and just like always trying to be the entertainer in the living room. And I got my first guitar when I was 10, started writing music, like songs, learning guitar when I was 11. I went into band, played the flute for about 4 years. Wow. And yeah, and I've always sang, always been singing. I was doing like funny little detour in my life. I was like in a punk rock band in middle school too.
Okay.
So, yeah, went on the full emo vibe for a little bit, and then after that phase, we started getting into R&B, and yeah, then we got, when I turned 19, I went to my first music festival and Northern Nights, and that's where I kind of was introduced to house music. And I was already listening to bass music on my own, like finding bass music, and got introduced to house music there. And that's kind of what like set off my inspiration and fire for like wanting to learn production and DJing. It was just like so amazing and so inspiring to me, seeing all this energy and just like awesome emotion just being created from like music in that space. So that's really what got me into production, which was daunting at first.
Gotcha. Yeah, it always is. There's a learning curve of production.
Yeah, and as a vocalist, it was like I knew I should have been producing, but just like always seeing like my friends being the producers on their DAWs, I would like record the vocals and then I'd see them on their DAWs. I'd always be like, whoa, that's intimidating. Like it's a lot in there, but finally got the gears rolling with it. So yeah, it's good.
I see. And what kind of bass music were you into?
Gosh, good question. I forget all the artist names now, but like artists that I still like is like Closey, Charles the First. Odessa wasn't super bass then, but they were definitely like a little less pop back in the day.
Right.
And then God, what was his name? XXYXX, something like that. I could never pronounce his name, but just kind of like that. Some bass music. So
okay. And then when was it that you first started dabbling in music production yourself?
right when I turned 20, I got my first DAW. I got Logic, and I messed with that for about 2 years. It was honestly, it was not very logical to me. So I was kind of just dabbling, trying to figure it out. And I then moved to Ableton, and then it was just way more, it was just way easy for me, way more easy, and was just like, I felt like Ableton's way more like creative. What am I trying to say? It's just easier for the artist to be creative in Ableton, I feel, instead of Logic. That's just how I perceived it. And yeah, then I got a mentor and started going from there.
I see. And then you released your first, and you made quite a splash with Down Like Me. I felt like that really wasn't just your textbook tech house, you know? Walk me through the creative process for that one.
Definitely not. Probably a lot of frustration back in that time. Like I look at my production back then, God, when was that? Was that like 4 or 5 years ago? Yeah, honestly, I was just really banging my head. Like production did not come easy for me. Like I'm sure for some people it comes easier than others, but it took me like a lot of work to learn producing and just making a good track that keeps dancers engaged, you know? So honestly, I don't really remember what the process was in that track because it was so long ago, but
Yeah.
I can tell you it was probably a lot of frustration.
I wouldn't have guessed that. I honestly wouldn't have guessed that. It sounded to me like you'd probably produced a lot of music before that and really
That's funny. That makes me feel really good. Thank you.
I mean, had you produced a lot of things before that like, you know, you don't really keep on your SoundCloud or on your Spotify anymore?
Yes, for sure. That was like probably like my first track after I'd released after I'd made like 100 tracks. And it was probably just like daunting for me as like my first track releasing it. It was like a big deal. Like, oh, I want people to perceive me as like a good producer, you know? And it's like, when you look back in retrospect, it's like, you just need to get your first track out because it's like, it's just gonna set you off and you're just gonna make 1,000 more tracks after that one. So it's like, I was probably so in my head, just like, I need to make it perfect. But, you know, and my sound doesn't even sound like that anymore. So it's just like artists are always growing. Yeah.
Of course, that's bound to happen. And I mean, yeah, 4 years in dance music years, that's like, you know, 20 years in regular person years. So
yeah.
I'm sure there have been a lot of milestone tracks since then. Like, what do you feel like are the tracks that were really like turning points for you in the 4 years since then?
Probably my track Technicality and Something Special.
Okay.
It's funny, Technicality, I don't even like play or listen to that much anymore because I just have played it out so much. But it definitely was like, that track was so easy for me to write, and it was like, it almost wrote itself. We're having a lot of fun with that one. And so, yeah, it's just, I'd say when I was making it, I knew, like, I could hear the tonality and I was like, oh, this is going to get picked up by like one of my top record labels. I know it. And it did. It got picked up by Ferris.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it was funny. I had this like sense of knowing. I was like, I know he's going to pick this one up because we'd already been kind of like talking, just connecting. And it just had that tonality. And some, you know, I've had that intuition sometimes with other tracks, like with, I think it was called Give It To Ya. I knew it was going to get picked up by Psycho Disco. I just was like, I know it's going to get picked up by them. And so it was just like, sometimes you just have that knowing.
What does it feel like coming from sort of that uncertain period, or, you know, at least where you're trying to find your process and find your sound? How does it feel to get those sign-offs at this point in your career?
Oh my God, it feels so good. Like I just got one today that was so unexpected. And I actually cried a little tear.
Like, oh, that was just today.
Yeah, I got another one today. I sent out a demo playlist of 5 tracks and I've been shopping them to all the labels. And you know how that goes sometimes when like you have big intentions and then some record labels are like, no, it's not for us. And you get 20 more no's and then you're like, oh dang, is this track gonna get picked up? And then finally like one that's way bigger that you didn't expect to pick it up, picks it up. And you're just like, oh my God.
I'm sure you probably can't
Crazy.
say who.
Yeah, I probably shouldn't yet.
Yeah.
Probably shouldn't do that yet.
That's understandable.
Yeah, but it's very exciting, and I'm just I'm so grateful and just kind of in disbelief still. So
That's
it's
great.
awesome.
Can't
Thank
wait
you.
to
Yeah,
find out who it is eventually.
yeah, for sure. By next year. So yeah,
Awesome.
a lot of exciting things coming.
That's great.
Yeah.
And you know, a little bit before this interview, you and I were talking about some of the kind of barriers or perceived barriers of entry for female artists. Can you tell me a little bit about your experience as a woman producer in electronic music?
Yeah, I mean, when I first started, it just felt like it was just unreachable for me. Like it almost felt like a joke to me. Like I'm like, how am I, like someone who's not even integrated in the scene and a woman, gonna get myself into this scene? Because I had never had a gig. I had no connections with anybody. I wasn't living in San Francisco at the time. And so I was having to drive back and forth. I lived 2 hours out of San Francisco to like network. I was having to drive 2 hours to San Francisco to potentially meet somebody that would like, maybe spark up a conversation with me and give me a lead on where I could get a gig. It was definitely difficult, but I will say once I started getting into the scene, and I think my like music and DJing spoke for itself, I did have some luck with people just kind of gravitating towards me and were being extremely nice. Honestly, I've had a pretty good experience with just people being really nice and very supportive. I've had a really amazing group of friends that just like support my music. And I can't say thank you enough to all those people. It's what keeps you going, And that's not to say I haven't had bad experiences with some people. Like I've definitely have had some male DJs like look at me and wonder what I'm doing. Like, do you know how to use this? I'm like, yeah, I know how to DJ. Like I know what this does,
Course,
So
yeah.
definitely some condescending energy from some people, but it's honestly been pretty good for me for the most part. So yeah.
I see. Have you felt like you had other like woman role models in electronic music?
Did you say women role models?
Yeah.
Yes, of course, definitely. Jamie J. Wara, one of my really good homies. Yeah, she was actually one of my biggest female inspirations and just inspirations in general. In the beginning, when I was getting involved in house music, like I messaged her on Instagram, probably like, was it 4 or 5 years ago now? Just telling her how she's an inspiration. She's like really setting the precedent for like women DJs and just like inspiring all of us that we can do this. And then like 3 months later, I'm opening at Halcyon for my first time ever, my debut at Halcyon, opening for her, So it's just like cool synchronistic energy. And I've been building a relationship with her for a while now. And who else? Saffron Stone is really incredible. I love her. She's got some great music. Amara, she's a UK DJ producer. She's got like a darker style, super incredible. And hopefully I don't botch this. Miane, I believe her name is. She's on Black Book Records a lot. Okay. She's just a boss and a beast at production. Yeah, there's a long list. So yeah, there's a lot of females coming out and just a lot of females that inspire me right now. So it's nice that I have that, because I'd say like 5 years ago, I didn't even know about these women. And I feel like a lot of us women are now getting momentum as well. And it's just really inspiring to see. And it's awesome to be part of the driving force.
That's really good to hear. So you do feel like, obviously there's still work to be done, but you do feel like there's kind of a big reckoning of the dance music industry, during the pandemic and stuff when it came to
definitely
and things like that. So you feel like there have been some steps made?
I definitely think that for sure. I mean, I see on like platforms and social media now, like if there's a lineup and there's not a female on it, or they don't feel like there's enough diversity, I do see comments like, oh, why aren't you like adding more of these females? Why aren't there like, it's like people are definitely wanting to see the diversity, and because it's there, there is a lot of females. It's just, you need to find them and support them. So
right. Yeah, the expectations are a little bit different. That is
for
true.
sure. Yeah.
And I remember reading that Justin Martin has asked for you by name to play direct support, and he's also supported some of your tracks and everything like that. How did you
Yeah.
get him?
Honestly, synchronicity. Like I feel like synchronicity and magic has been such a big part in my like role, you know, of just getting integrated in this industry. I met his girlfriend a while ago, like 3 years ago, and I didn't even know it was his girlfriend. We just met at Halcyon a long time ago, and we just clicked, vibed, and then yeah, she started supporting me. We became good friends, and then he came to a show of mine, and he's just so incredible. He's so nice, so humble, and just a
Yeah, great guy.
sweetheart. And yeah, he supports a lot of like younger green artists, and you know, he was actually the first house artist I had listened to at Northern Nights Music Festival.
Really?
Yes, so he knows this story. It's very full circle and endearing. I just did a remix for him recently off of his Ghettos and Gardens album.
Yeah.
And he definitely like, you know, was a big part and role in me just like wanting to produce house music because, you know, I did come from like the bass scene. And during that time, like, was it 8 years ago now? Northern Nights, 2014. Yeah. His house music was still kind of like bassy, you know,
Yeah.
like had a lot of bass, dubby, like synths and like sonically it was bassy, and it was easy for me to be like, oh, this is cool house music. Like it wasn't too far from my scene. And so, yeah.
It's funny because I always think of him as being more melodic than other like Dirty Bird artists, for instance. That's like in my mind, that's
he's
sure. Diverse. He's just diverse. He just makes
he's very diverse. He's able to like, he's very eclectic. I feel like he like brings in those dirty synths while bringing in like a beautiful harp melody, and it's just like, how can you not like it? You know, like
Definitely.
it's very easy to listen to. When like someone asks me like what house music should I listen to if they're like a newbie to house music, I'm like, Justin Martin. Like you can't not like him.
That's a good call. That's a really good point. He is a good training wheels house music artist.
Yeah, and I almost feel like he's his own genre these days. Like he has such a sound. Like you listen to any of his tracks from 15 years ago to now, you're like, oh, that's a Justin Martin track.
Definitely. That's true. That's
Yeah.
true. And then speaking of house music has a really interesting trajectory right now. It's been going on for a long time. A lot more sort of commercial interest. You know, it was 4 years ago, it was Fisher having a #1 on the Billboard Dance Club Songs chart. And you know, you would have figured that would have been the peak, but no. I mean, now we have Drake and Beyonce dabbling in house music.
Yeah.
What do you think of this? What do you think of this trend? Are you for it? Are you against it? Somewhere in the middle?
I'm not against it. Honestly, I'm like, hey, like people are making art, and if people are responding to it, then hey, that's good for you. Like there's always going to be haters. And I think if something's working for you, then that's awesome. And you should go with that. Doesn't mean you have to like it, you know?
Right.
Yeah.
That's true. And
Yeah.
then are there any artists whose music you play a lot of in your sets?
Yes.
Lately, especially, like, you know, like you notice they keep on making tracks. You're like, oh, I gotta play that one.
Yeah, I play a lot of Adapters music.
Okay.
I love his style of production. I play a lot of Miane lately. I hope I'm saying her name right. I'm sorry if I'm not. And who else? I play a lot of Green Velvet. Play a lot of Jay Warris stuff too. Is there anybody else? Trying to think. I'm sure once I look in my record box, I'm gonna be like, oh yeah, I play all these people's tracks.
Right.
But those are the top ones that come off my head for sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then are there any like up and coming artists that you know of that you feel are like deserving of a bigger spotlight, like deserving of more recognition than maybe they're getting right now?
Yeah, I think Amara for sure. She's so talented. Honey Love, definitely. She's really starting to climb the charts. It's awesome to see. Who else? West End. I feel like that guy is just such a boss in what he does and could definitely get more recognition. He's had some tracks, top charting tracks that have gotten him some more recognition lately, but he's just such a beast in what he does. Who else? Adapter for sure. Yeah.
Okay.
I say that name a lot to people and they're like, Adapter. I'm like, yeah, you don't know? Well, you should know.
It's good to know. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then I feel like you have a really strong presence in San Francisco. Obviously, it's growing elsewhere, but San Francisco, it seems like you've really planted some roots. How did you come up in that scene?
Yeah. Well, it was just the closest city that I knew was very house music oriented from where I lived. I lived 2 hours in the Sierras out of San Francisco. And so, like I said, I was just driving out there every weekend, going to parties, going to events, trying to meet people, literally emailing every single person I could find on the internet. And I just made a lot of friends there. And Audio was like my first club I started playing at, and then Halcyon was came like my home club where I was opening there a lot and started just DJing there quite a bit. And from that, you just meet a lot of people, And so, yeah, a lot of people think I'm from there, and I'm like, I'll let you think that.
That was the impression that I had. That was actually the impression I had.
And I like that. It's like, that's fine with me. I'm there all the time, and I was there all of the time, just like going back and forth. And God, I couldn't do that now. Just like driving 2 hours there, then 2 hours back, getting back at 4 a.m. just to try and like connect with people, So
Right.
It was a fun time though.
I see. And then is there anything else that you'd like fans of yours to know about you, like that maybe, that they wouldn't know, like maybe some hobbies that you have? I don't know, anything really.
Yeah, besides spending hours in a recording studio, I paint. I like painting. I haven't
Okay,
painted
what
in
kind
a
of
while.
paint?
What was that?
What kind of paint?
I do acrylic painting. So I
Okay.
used to do like surreal, fantastical acrylic paintings. It's been a minute since sorry about that. Been a minute since I painted, just because I'm so hyper focused on music.
Yeah.
And yeah, I used to be a competitive equestrian rider back in my day also.
Oh.
Yeah, so that's a little random curveball for you. And yeah, I think that's as exciting as I get.
Well, the music stuff is really exciting right now, everything that's going on with that. So
Thank you. Yeah, it is very exciting. It's very humbling, and it's a really good time. All the hard work and years feel like they're finally coming to fruition, and yeah, it's a great feeling.
well, I think that's about as good a note as any to leave things off on. Thank you so much for meeting with me today.
Oh yeah, thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. And then, yeah, so have a great rest of your day, and we'll talk to you soon, all right?
All right, sounds good, man. Have a good one.
All right, bye-bye.
Peace.